Prime Minister's future hanging by a thread this morning. The report into Downing Street parties by senior civil servant Sue Gray has been delayed until next week as she gathers new evidence.
Boris Johnson's already been questioned by Sue Gray, and she's held senior positions under a number of prime ministers. But of course, with everybody putting their faith into her inquiry, the question is, who is she? Where has her formidable reputation come from? Our correspondent Lorna Shaddock went to find out.
Well, we're joined now by the former First Minister of Northern Ireland, Arlene Foster. Good morning to you. Thank you for joining us this morning. So some great anecdotes there about Sue Gray. The Sue Gray that was a landlady, that was hugely influential in the community that she was working in with her husband as well. She's somebody that you know and have worked alongside for a long time as well. Can you just describe your experience of working with Sue Gray, what she's like as a person?
She's become a kind of mythical figure, hasn't she?
Indeed. Good morning, Ben and Susanna. Sue Gray came over to Northern Ireland on a secondment from the Cabinet Office back in 2018, and she became the Permanent Secretary of the Department of Finance and Personnel. And she worked there at a period when we didn't have devolution. So she had to go out and speak to people because there weren't any ministers around at that time. And I think she was very well respected, particularly by the business community here in Northern Ireland. She's not what I would call your average senior civil servant. She's very open, she's very approachable, she's not at all stuffy, and isn't afraid to go around different processes to get to the truth and to get to what she needs to get to deal with an issue. So I think she's very well placed to deal with this issue. She'll be fully aware of the significance, obviously. I'm sure she's under incredible pressure, but she will be able to deal with that pressure, and she'll bring forward the report, which I think will be a fact-finding report. She'll not get into the politics. She'll just bring us forward a fact-finding piece of information.
Arlene Foster, that, for a lot of people, will not be enough if she simply lists the facts. Because, you know, Boris Johnson has presented his version of the facts, didn't realise that it wasn't allowed under the rules.
No one told him.
No one told him that the rules meant that you couldn't have this type of event. We need someone who's going to make a judgment rather than outline the facts?
Well, I don't think it would be fair to ask a senior civil servant to have judgment on the Prime Minister. I think she will interview, and has done, the Prime Minister himself. We're told she's also speaking to Dominic Cummings, who of course has a campaign to get rid of the Prime Minister. She will make judgments on what she is told, and then she will present those facts to us all. And then it will be for us to determine, for the Commons to determine, for the Conservative Party to determine what should happen next.
And ultimately for the Prime Minister to determine, because he is her boss, isn't he? He's the one who decides, once he's looked at the facts about what he did, what should happen to him. I mean, that's what's so remarkable. She might be unimpeachable as a civil servant. She might have the thickest skin and be very resilient and consider herself to be impartial. But her boss is the Prime Minister, and he's the one under scrutiny.
I think what's important is she will present the facts, as she did, as you will recall, with Damien Green. Damien Green then had to resign under Theresa May's premiership. So she will present the facts in a very open way. We understand that the Prime Minister is to see those facts before they become public, but only just before they become public. And then he will have to determine what course of action he needs to take.
What do you think about the Prime Minister's behaviour? What do you think about the fact that there are now more than 10 parties, events, gatherings that appear to have broken the rules during lockdown when everybody else was making sacrifices? You know, we look at them in the light, I think, probably of restrictions lifting, and perhaps just those of us who didn't have to not go into a hospital to visit someone who was very ill, or not go to a funeral of someone because, you know, you exceeded the numbers. You know, those were the sacrifices people were making at this time. We saw the Queen having to make that sacrifice. You know, what did you think when you found out about them?
Well, I think the most shocking for me was not the party that the Prime Minister called into, but the fact that Downing Street, the seat of government, had a party the night before Prince Philip's funeral. In fact, two parties, as we understand it, and then the parties came together. I think that was the most outrageous breach, because here we were in a period of national mourning, never mind the COVID restrictions. We were in a period of national mourning, and Downing Street civil servants thought it was a good idea to have two parties. I thought that was incredibly bad taste. I think there's something wrong in the civil service in Downing Street that was allowed to happen, and I think that needs to be tackled, and I hope that Sue Gray's report does tackle that issue.
Do you feel that what Boris Johnson is doing by the lifting of restrictions, sort of coming in from today in certain areas, mask wearing in classrooms, and then in public next week, and then further restrictions being lifted, is something that is a reaction to this? It's a means of trying to sort of politically play a game whereby people will get on side because that's what they want to see. And I noticed that the restrictions in Northern Ireland are more or less sort of staying where they are.
Well, we'll hear hopefully later whether the restrictions are staying where they are in Northern Ireland. I think the Prime Minister probably got it right this time in relation to the restrictions before Christmas, when other parts of the United Kingdom were taking a tougher line, because we have to remember that the legislation that is there to deal with those COVID restrictions, we are meant to be proportionate in our actions as government. I don't know whether Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland did take a proportionate action at that time, but they should have been looking at what happens to our young people, what happens to our elderly, the isolation that they feel, what happens to the economy. And I think most people will welcome the fact, whether it's for political reasons or not, they will welcome the fact that Plan B restrictions are being lifted. And I hope that here in Northern Ireland, we'll see our executive moving in that direction as well.
What do you think should happen to Boris Johnson? I mean, you know, we're constantly saying, and the reason for this interview is, you know, we leave it in the hands of Sue Gray. You wrote in an article in the Express a couple of days ago about that, those parties on the eve of Prince Philip's funeral, for the civil service to so blatantly disrespect our monarch. The epitome of duty and service is despicable. It's a civil servant who is carrying out this inquiry. What do you think the Prime Minister should do right now?
Well, I think we should wait to see what Sue Gray brings forward, obviously. And I think actually it is a matter for the Conservative Party. A lot of people are expressing their views on the Prime Minister, but at the end of the day, Labour can say whatever they want. The Scottish Nationalists have been calling for his resignation every Prime Minister's question now for quite some time. But fundamentally, it's what his own colleagues believe should happen. And I think we'll find that out very, very soon.
Thanks very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you.